Think of yourself as an athlete, as a business athlete.
Let's partner up for good with NESCAFÉ. Welcome to Let's Partner Up for Good, Nestlé supporting your business journey. I'm Dave Sharp. I'll be your host for this session, which is all about workplace well-being. So I've got some experts with me to answer the challenges of our small business owners who are also joining us on the sofa. And one of those experts, of course, is well known to you, best known for her role on Dragon's Den, I think, but an entrepreneur and also an investor. Deborah, welcome. It's such an important subject, isn't it? Workplace well-being.
Absolutely. Well-being is an important subject, so why would it be any different inside your workplace than it is at home? And actually that's for a people reason, because we want people to be healthy and happy, but it's for a business reason. You know, happy, healthy people are better at their jobs, so very important.
I mentioned there that we've got a couple of our experts.
Yeah, hi. I head up human resources for Nestlé's coffee businesses here in the UK and Ireland, and a key part of my job is ensuring that our employees are healthy and productive at work.
Hi, I'm June Clark. I'm the Health and Wellbeing Manager for Nestlé UK and Ireland, and my role really is to encourage our employees to make the right lifestyle choices and make sure we've got the right tools in place to enable them to make the right lifestyle choices to keep them happy, healthy and productive at work.
And we've got our three business people, Simon, Jamie and Jack, from very different business backgrounds and businesses. But let's start with you, Jack. Tell us a little bit about you and your business.
Jack Bussey. I own JJB Corporation UK Limited, and we make a range of about 2,000 different products made from sheet metal. All the way from DIY gardening brackets to robotic welding systems.
Yeah, we're in Scout Network. We're an independent network offering observation specialist services for talent ID and team analysis.
And that's all in the football industry?
It is, yeah. It's predominantly in the non-league section of the football pyramid.
And that's a big industry. Simon, your business?
Hi, Simon Poole from Splash Projects. We develop teams through community projects on a worldwide basis. We basically challenge corporate companies and business schools to plan, lead and execute something that's got a purpose. Since we started in 2005, we've put about 60,000 people through projects in 34 different countries, and we've delivered 200 executive education programs and about 110 master's programs all around giving back to the community.
Fantastic. Jack, you're a business person, but you also care about your staff and their well-being, but you've got some challenges around that. Share them with us.
How can we balance the well-being and productivity and profit?
Well, I actually think productivity genuinely does come from people who are feeling safe and they're feeling well looked after in an organisation. So naturally leads on to the other. Often the issues around well-being are dealt with differently across the genders. So for you, I think it's how do you find a safe space where people can feel that they can talk about things that they need to talk about, and also can show a level of vulnerability, that because people are always worried about, what am my boss going to think if I tell them this, there's issues going on. I think it's really, really powerful. It's very interesting that I was involved in a study of 10,000 business leaders and people that worked within their organisations. And what came out of that study was that 2/3 of people would actually accept lower pay if they felt that they were in a workplace that they really valued and really valued them. I don't say that because we can then all reduce the pay, but it just goes to show how important it is. And the most important thing was empathy. That was what they want from their leaders. They want empathy. They want people to really think that they really care. And I think it can be an incredibly powerful tool. If you do care, you're lucky. Hopefully you do. Hopefully we all do care. We need to show it a lot more. We need to show it at the right level. We're not a place to go, and be crying all the time and showing all of our emotions all the time. But we need to offer a safe space to be able to discuss those things. And a very powerful tool is to show your own vulnerability. I am quite happy to show my vulnerability. I'm quite happy to say that upsets me. You know, that makes me happy, that makes me sad. And if you can show that I've made a mistake, I'm sorry. You know, I've got that right, that's great. It's an incredibly powerful tool because people are observing your behavior and saying that's okay within this organization. The ones that actually have a really good culture of well-being are the ones who show real empathy.
Guy, what are you seeing that's, because it's about balance, I think that's the question, isn't it? How do we get the balance right? What advice would you give? What are you seeing that's working?
It's about making space for these conversations to happen. I'll give you some very real examples of the things that we do in Nestlé that are working ever so well, which is I know that you have morning meetings with all of your team, don't you? At the beginning of our meetings, not every single day, but particularly our monthly meetings, we have a check-in. And you just basically just let everybody know how you're getting on, how you're feeling, how's life going on, and you just share in that meeting and just say, and we often get people to start that check-in with, you know, I'm fully present today, or the opposite. And then you can start to have conversations. And people feel free to discuss that. But your point, Deborah, on that means so much more when the leader opens up a little bit about some of the things. We also have slip of the month moments where we just say, you know, I'm having a good month, but you never guess what I did. And when the leader does that first, it's incredible. People start to open up. And then you start to eliminate mistakes and errors as well. So you see the benefit.
There's also something about understanding what the culture is you've got in your environment, really. So what is the culture that you're building that allows people to feel that it's safe to talk? And we talk, you know, when you talk about your morning meetings, I'm pretty sure one of the first things you talk about is safety. But do you think about the H in health and safety? So that's a really good way of introducing well-being, because quite often people think well-being's a bit fluffy and I can't be bothered with that and it's fruit on Fridays. But maybe if you just started talking about the H in the health and safety and asking what, you know, your small team, what's really important to them about their health and well-being.
Jack, you've got a number of challenges that are facing you in your business around the well-being issue. What's your biggest challenge that you'd like to ask the experts?
Well, it's how can we start rolling out a well-being system or strategy without breaking the bank?
Well, I actually think a lot of the things that deal with well-being are actually free. It is because we're thinking this is about dealing with human beings. This is about showing compassion and having empathy, and it's often about behavioural change. You know, so it's cultural change, behavioural change, but it might mean investment in people. You know, either in the people you've got within your organisation who might need more training. You might be able to identify somebody who has a real aptitude, you know, real empathy with the others and is seen as a leader, and you identify them and say, actually, we will help you. We will give you some training. And it might well be that you need to set up structures, either consultants or charities even, to help support you. So I don't think it has to be high cost. In fact, I would say it's probably one of the lowest cost and highest impact actions that you can take within a business.
And June, you must also come across a lot of resources, low cost, maybe free, easy to implement, things that Jack could take away.
I think Jack's quite lucky because his business is based in one area. So, you know, first thing I would say is find yourself a wellbeing champion in your business and give them encouragement to look at what's really important and find out what's available in your area. There's loads of NHS, you know, the government now are really pouring money into preventative because the NHS is struggling. So, you know, look what's in your area. GPs do lots of free health checks. Local councils have lots of health promotion initiatives. But you probably haven't got the time because you're building your business. But find somebody who's really passionate about it, or 2 or 3 people who's really passionate. Give them the job of being your wellbeing champions and ask them to look what's about in your local area. There'll be loads of free resources and people who will come in and do things for you.
Guy and Deborah are both chomping at the bit because you've come up with ideas and strategies for him, haven't you?
Well, I would think about it in 2 different ways. One, think policies, and then think about involvement and engagement. So if you think about policies, think about things like flex days, if people can take number of days over and above their holiday if they've put more hours in than usual, or hybrid working, people working from home if it suits them and suits their personal lives better, if that's possible. So there's policies, but then there's the behaviours and the involvement. So getting involved with groups of employees, for instance, an example we have is that as well as our leadership team, our board of directors, we have a mirror board where volunteers, representatives of the various teams across the business join in and try and support us in terms of solving business issues and getting involved and feeding back to us on those particular issues. And that is incredibly engaging and involving. And the improvement on people's well-being and engagement and mental health follow on naturally from that level of involvement.
A couple of words of advice. If you give somebody the job, or if you identify somebody who you think would be really good, give them the time and reward them, because I doubt there's many people in your organisation who are sitting there thinking, oh, I've got loads of time now, what shall I do? So you do have to think about, it's not just giving that role to somebody, it's properly supporting that role. And that's often giving the time, the space, any support they need, and actually think about their reward package at the same time, because they are taking extra responsibility.
The other thing I would add is make sure they can influence the people around them. Because quite often wellbeing's given to an administrator because you think the administrator's got loads of time. Don't give it, unless they're really passionate about it, give it to somebody who can influence the behaviours of other people as well, and you, because they've got to influence you.
I think, again, as Deborah said, it's things we referred to earlier, is there are cost-free elements, cost-free but requiring a bit of time, in terms of setting up networks, groups, discussion groups within the workplace that focus on wellness and focus on health specifically as subjects. And people you'll be amazed how many people choose to champion particular elements that are personal to them. Connect with charities. I talked earlier about Mind, the mental health charity. They do some superb work. And the other really practical thing you can do is look at the resources online to help you get there. The gov.uk have some wellbeing, family-friendly policies on their website that you can use. And then the Chartered Institute of People and Development also provides some really good free resources that you can access online.
And Simon, your challenge, similar. We're all talking about health, well-being and wellness. What's the biggest challenge facing you? What's your question?
How are you feeling? How's your wellness? So how would you recommend looking after yourself?
I love that question. It's not addressed often enough. It's all about the workforce. Of course, that's really important. But there are, if you're not feeling great, it's very difficult to create a good environment. And one of the things I say is what stops us from looking after ourselves is often guilt. As business owners, we feel like we should be working all of the time. We should be working harder than everybody else. We should be in first and we should be out last. And what I say is turn that on its head. Think of yourself as an athlete, as a business athlete. No athlete in the world keeps themselves at peak condition all of the time. Because if they try to do that, when they get to do the race that they've got to run, they're not ready. So to keep yourself mentally fit is an important part of your role. And it's pushed to one side, as if we can pull it out and constantly be on it. But the ability to, and I am really good at this, it would surprise most people, I am really good at this. I'm sorry, I need off time. And I feel no guilt whatsoever, because I understand that when I'm needed, I'm going to be able to bring my game, because I've kept myself mentally fit. So to me, it's all about the guilt. Get rid of the guilt, and recognize the power and importance of being that business fit. So when you've got the big deal, you can really bring it on.
We've had to face into this a lot in Nestlé because the working from home situation has become a lot more prevalent, and obviously the pandemic accelerated that thinking. So it's useful having quite a few tips, which is, think of your time at your laptop as you would your office, and you leave your office physically at some point. So when you are going to stop work and you're at home, create a barrier, a change of habit between switching your laptop off and going back into the house. Sounds rather strange, but get dressed for work at home. And then when you've finished your day's work, switch your laptop off, switch your notifications onto silent, shut the door if you're lucky enough to have a home office, go and get changed as if you'd just come home from work, and then you're with your family. And of course, one of the greatest relievers to workplace stress is being with the family and spending quality time outside of work. Try and create a real barrier between work and home. And if you own your own business, you won't do it. Just try it. Experiment.
But before that, recognising that we need to take a break. It's my wife that will point out to me, you need to take a break, you're grouchy, or you don't look well, or you're tired. But we need to start recognising it in ourselves and give ourselves permission to do those things, give ourselves a reward. How do we do that?
I think it depends what matters to you. And also, we always think that nothing, the company can't manage without us. Well, believe me, it can. And look at it as what is the next stage in your career. And if it isn't working as you are now, what is it that's important to you? And start building that now. And you've got to make time for that. So you can't carry on at the pace that you're doing and not invest time in what's important to you. Because when you stop, you don't know what's there anymore. So really think about what's important to you and what you value.
There's maintenance things that I will do all of the time, which means I don't build up the pressures. I'm really not a stressed person at all because I don't build up the pressures. Of course, there are moments when I think I can't deal with any more. And that's when I have to stop myself and think about myself. And we're not very good at that. We kind of think it's selfish, or we kind of think, well, we can't show that we can't deal with this. But I'm very good at saying to myself, okay, I'm not functioning very well now. I need mechanisms. So I think people finding their own mechanisms to say, that's my maintenance stuff. That's what I'm going to do on a daily basis, come hell or high water. And the other stuff is the stuff that I can bring in when actually we have all of those, all of us have those moments when actually life just feels like my head is going to explode.
People need to know they've got a choice, don't they? That it isn't just that usual list of things that people recommend.
Yes, and we encourage people to talk about what makes them happy and healthy. So we encourage our employees to talk about what it means for them. And it's not just the athletes, it's the people that really need it as well.
What's the biggest challenge facing you? What's your question?
My question is really, what impact do you think that has on the team? And what impact does it have on a business on the long term? I've got two styles going on in the business at the moment, which is difficult.
That's interesting because what you often find in an organisation, and I can sense it, I'll walk into an organisation and I can think, oh, there's a happy, cohesive, that team are bought in, you get another team in a different, literally in the same room in a different area and think, oh, something going on in here. So I think it has an absolutely huge impact. And I think that you probably know the people who are resisting buying into, mental well-being. And you've got to tackle it. You need to, because actually somewhere in there, they're human beings. Outside of work, they'll worry about their friends and their families. So I think you have to find the trigger, get them engaged in bringing the same things they care about outside of work into work with them, and just treating people in the same way. There should be no barrier. I see too many people get to the door of their workplace, take off the coat of all the stuff they care about, the kindnesses that they show other people, the empathy and the compassion. They take all that off at the door and then they behave in a completely different way. That's dishonest. That is not authentic. So we need to get them to keep that coat on and just allow them to be people within the organisation. You do that by showing how much you value that. If people will behave in the way that is valued in an organisation. So if you can show them, if you can encourage them, and you said something before, it's drip feeding often. I think you have to have a starter conversation. You do have to have a conversation, but then you don't let it go. It's just not a nag, just a constantly bringing it into the conversation, because it has a massive effect on an organisation.
100%. We recognise deeply the fact that there's a phrase in human resources that says that people choose to join an organisation, they choose to leave because of the manager. Okay, so that's often the case. We recognise the importance of it. It has a direct cost for your business. We measure all of our leaders on two scales: the what they achieve and the how they achieve it. And that affects their promotion prospects, it affects their reward. It has a real impact on them, and that's how seriously we take it. So if you want to make a difference, you can put things in place that will actually start to drive that change. Health and mental health in particular are at the forefront of our thinking as an employer.
Simon's challenge is this potential clash between people who are embracing this topic and others who are perhaps more resistant. June, what would you suggest?
I think the first thing I heard was you've got managers and you've got leaders, and leadership is very different to managing. So I think Guy's right. We put a lot of emphasis on the how as well as the what. We invest in employee health and well-being, and we expect people to behave in a way that empowers their direct reports and the people that they work with. So I think making sure that they understand that actually they will get better results and there'll be more productivity at people who you take along with that journey, rather than just dictating what you want, because all you do is create a set of people who just do what they're told. If you want innovation and you want people to really go with you, you need to lead them, not manage them.
How do you undo that conditioning, especially later in life when you've perhaps had 30, 40 years of it?
It takes time. So it's going back to, what do I want to achieve and how long have I got to achieve it? So start off with, right, what's our ambition? So do we want to be managers or do we want to be leaders? Where do we want to get to? And then start building those blocks as you go along. So when you bring new people into your business, bring in people who want to lead. Don't bring in people who want to manage. And eventually you'll get a groundswell of people who will behave in that way because they become the outsiders. And we're a bit like herd animals, aren't we? We want to be like everyone else. So if you get more people who want to lead and give people that psychological safety that they can be their authentic self, the others will eventually come along with you.
Jamie, you're working with a transient group of people. Footballers come and go into the game, out of the game. Maybe that's part of the problem. What's the big challenge for you in your industry?
So the challenge for us is to spot the early indicators of when someone's maybe struggling and to understand that people might need some help.
A great question. And many people, Deborah, are very good at masking it. You think they're okay and they're really not.
Change for some people is seen as a gateway. They see it as a gateway. I see it as a gateway. The best things in my life have come when something's happened, and it's either forced me to change or an opportunity that's changed. Do you have a relationship with those people, or do they kind of come to you in a transient way?
Both. We would have both. So some will know from the area, but with us being nationally in the non-league, we will, and we're a part of a network. They will come to us for help and advice. So some people we don't know on a personal level.
So the ones with a relationship are probably going to be easier because you're going to spot what is not normal. Even if they're masking it, there are tell signs. You'll think, we're very good at reading body language. We're very good at reading the unspoken word. And if you're in a room with somebody, you just get that feeling of, is everything all right? So I think you'll probably be able to deal with that. It's the ones that you don't know very well. And I think language, there's a very short connection between the words that we say and our brains. And to me, it's the language that is used and it's the language that is not used that tells me we've got an issue here. So people are avoiding certain things. They don't want to talk about certain things. And when you bring it to them, they'll sidestep it and move around the subject. And I think that, if you're tuned into that, then you'll be able to identify exactly what it is, because everybody's anxieties are going to be different. It's not just the change. It's the question of what is worrying you about that change. What is your biggest fear? And they often don't know. They're kind of telling you really that it's in there somewhere, and they are telling you by the way they speak. Pay a lot of attention to the language and try and help them identify exactly what it is that's worrying them, because often they can't. And then they reach the realization, actually, why am I so anxious? You're absolutely right. This is an opportunity. Or they're able to pinpoint something. I'm really worried because I've just got married and we've just had children and I really didn't need change at this point in my career, and then you can deal with the problem, not just the anxiety of change.
Guy, you were nodding there. I mean, you must have some views.
Yeah, very, very much so. And I guess it's mental health isn't the taboo that it used to be. People are getting better at talking about it, but not enough. In most workplaces we work in, there are first aiders. So why not have mental health first aiders? And that's exactly, I'm being really unfair because I'm stealing June's thunder here, because June did some great work across Nestlé introducing mental health first aiders. And the other thing is, it's not an overly expensive thing to do. You could partner with a charity such as Mind, a mental health charity, and they will provide you with all sorts of resources to implement the programme. And the difference is, it's the usual prevention rather than cure. It really does pay dividends.
It's a complex topic, isn't it?
It is a complex topic, and I think you have to, in any business, look at where your risks are, because you have to build a wellbeing culture, but you have to build it around your risks and your the people in your business. I think just to go back to, the great feedback around, how to get people to talk, but I think you've also got to have the courage to ask. And that's also, if you see someone struggling, it's quite hard to say, are you okay? Because they'll say, actually, no, I'm fine. Having that courage to go back again and say, I don't think you are really, because I've noticed this, this and this, is also really important. So it's not just noticing the signs, it's having the courage to go in there and make sure you can do something about it and signpost them in the right places to go. But yeah, wellbeing's got to be much more holistic than just mental health or physical health. It's got to be about the whole person. When I feel well, I feel happy, I feel quite healthy, but I feel fulfilled. That's my well-being. It's not running a marathon, because if I set myself up to run a marathon, I'm going to fail.
Your next big challenge, what would you like to ask?
What can we do to help kind of bridge that gap and give it a little bit more exposure for the women?
Often it's through example that people get excited, and the good news is we have a fantastic women's football team, so that's brilliant. But there is that bit in the middle where you've got this great example going on here, and actually the kind of the behaviours within the sport haven't caught up with that. And there are some really simple triggers that you can do. I met a fantastic girl who had realised that all the stock pictures within rugby were male. You couldn't get a picture of a female rugby player. So when you do anything, just check your own representation, because they should be equal. And I bet if you go through your photographs, so if you've got a website, if you go through the pictures on your website, I bet you'll find there's more with male football than female football. Now that's just one example. Make sure the language is inclusive. Make sure that there's a clear signal. You think they're equal, and therefore they are equal, because they are. They might be treated not equally, but they are equal. So that there is an expectation that women are going to be just as good at football as men.
What would you suggest?
It's not about positive discrimination. It's about ensuring that when you're looking at positions and you're looking at opportunities, you get an equal number of people applying for roles, if possible, and you can take that on as a personal challenge and look for balanced shortlists. We insist on it in our jobs, and if you go to advert and you don't have a balanced shortlist, advertise again. Look at your adverts, think where you're advertising, and then you can start the recruitment process. You can control that, and you can make a difference. And that's got nothing to do with positive discrimination. That's equality of opportunity.
June, what would you suggest?
I think also recognise that some of these women are quite vulnerable as well, because we're in a very male-dominated world. So don't just assume that they are better at coping, because we always hear that, men don't talk about their feelings very much. They're in a really intensely competitive environment. So recognise that and encourage them to, they don't man up, because you hear that so much. But, I've worked in a male environment for a lot of my career, and you try that bit harder, much harder, because you don't want to be seen as the woman and the weak link. So just make sure that you recognise and encourage them to be really, understand what they are and what their strengths are.
Thanks to our experts for sharing their insights and advice on workplace wellbeing. If you'd like further tips, visit nestleprofessional.co.uk.